Welcome back to the best division in football with your boys Awthentik and The Beard, the best television show not on TV. What an interesting week for the NFC East, man. All teams were on the road this week. All teams end up taking a major L. Could not believe it, man. The Giants lost to the Saints 24-6. The Commanders got things close late, but lost to the Rams 28-0. The Bills beat the brakes off them Cowboys 31-10. That was definitely an unexpected victory, at least in that fashion. I know the Beard smiling from ear to ear backstage about that one. The Eagles were upset by Drew Lock of all quarterbacks in the Seattle Seahawks, 20-17. Now the Eagles and the Cowboys did clinch a playoff spot despite losing their games. Shout out to everybody that tuned in to the Bleacher Report streams this week, man. That was definitely love. That was a tough one. Bleacher Report definitely setting me up with these titles a little bit. This one said, DeVito magic, is it over? I don't even know if DeVito was ever a magician or not, but let's bring in the best co-host in the country. We got 4 games to go over today. My brother from another, the strong side to the left side duo, the Beard himself. How you feeling, brother?
I'm doing okay, considering everything. It was obviously, a tough weekend here in Washington. The people are talking and social medias are yapping. And
social media is a nightmare right now.
It is just disgusting. It's a disaster. I mean, you got people going at players and players coming back at people and people losing their minds, and everybody wants to be right and nobody wants to be wrong, and everybody's pointing the fingers. And listen, it's hard to win it all in the National Football League, okay? It's hard. But I understand the frustration from all these fan bases. Even the Cowboys, they've been so good all year long, right? But, the Cowboys are still trying to get a Super Bowl for as long as Washington has, pretty much, right?
Yeah.
I mean, the Giants, at least they've got
three quarters of our lives.
Yeah, so it's tough for them too. And I mean, the Eagles, the expectations, it's difficult for a team like the Eagles too. You win. All they've been doing is winning for, it feels like 2 years now. And now they've lost 3 games in a row. So there's a lot going on in the National Football League. There's a lot of tough losses, a lot of injuries, a lot of backup quarterbacks doing things. It's just, we're getting down to the wire here. It's going to be interesting. Big shout out to Tampa Bay, though. Baker Mayfield, man.
Yeah, Baker's been balling.
Baker's been balling. So it's just –
he's no Aiden O'Connell, but he's been balling.
So it's going to be interesting to see how things pan out here these last couple of weeks. I still love football no matter what happens, no matter how bad the team is. It's just been a little bit more heartbreaking this year.
Yeah, I bet. When I saw y'all 10 losses, I was like, damn. I thought it was a typo. Because on my notes I had 9 losses, and I look back, I said, wait a minute, that can't be right.
Yeah, I let myself get caught up early in the season. So the Beard's predictions not looking so hot.
Not looking too good. Yeah. Hey, week by week, mines are falling off here too, so don't feel too bad about it.
But big shout out to everybody who's in the chat, everybody who's watching across all the different platforms. That is Facebook, Twitch, Twitter, and of course right here on YouTube. We appreciate all the love and all the support. It's going to be a nice little ride through tough waters for Week 15 in the NFC East here.
It definitely is, man. Let's get right to it. I want to get these 2 games out the way. I was telling people on Twitter, I was telling the Beard, today's show just kind of feels like there might be a little bit of a rant here. So let's start with the Dallas Cowboys. Actually, let's start with the Philadelphia Eagles. Let's start with the Philadelphia Eagles. They played on Monday night, traveled to Seattle to take on the Seattle Seahawks. I wanted to give our Dallas Cowboys homies a little bit of time to, get into the chat, so they can hear the flowers that the Beard has to be delivered for today. You know what I'm saying? So we'll start with the Philadelphia Eagles. They are sitting at 10-4 right now. Seattle Seahawks improved to 7-7. The Eagles led it to half 10-0. I thought that, they were letting the Seahawks kind of hang around, but I thought they'd be able to control this game and close things out. They only managed to score 1 touchdown in the third quarter. That was their only score in the second half. Seahawks snapped a 4-game losing streak. Now, the Seahawks were in the middle of arguably the toughest stretch of the year for any team, I would say. Maybe the New York Giants weeks 1 through 5 were pretty close to this, but to have to play the Baltimore Ravens, the Los Angeles Rams, the Dallas Cowboys, the San Francisco 49ers 2 times, and the Philadelphia Eagles in 6 of their 7 last games here. That's really tough. Now, the Eagles did put up some numbers on the box score here. They outperformed the Seahawks in total yards, third down percentage, first downs, total plays, rushing yards, red zone percentage. Seattle was 0 of 2 in the red zone. I don't know how they managed to win the game with that one. And they lost the time of possession battle. Now, real briefly, I've seen Jalen Hurts win games like this before. He was 17 of 31, just 143 yards, 13 rushes for 82 yards. He had 2 rushing touchdowns. He broke the single-season record for most rushing touchdowns by a quarterback, beating out Cam Newton. But the turnovers, the 2 interceptions, both from Julian Love, one at the end of the game. I don't think that first foot hit the – I don't know if that hit the turf, bro.
It was tough because, initially that's my thought too. But, they sold it to me. By the time I saw that replay 4 or 5 times, I was like, man, that was amazing.
Sell it to me, man. Bad angles on the replay. It was the first time I was looking at the replay like, y'all really don't got a good angle there. You don't see that, most of the time when you see somebody's foot touch that turf, do a little bit of movement. I didn't see that movement. I thought it was a bad decision by Jalen Hurts to throw the ball down the field there. But the Eagles wide receiver corps was pretty much shut down in this game. Devonta Smith didn't even have that many targets. He only had 5 targets on the day. He did have 5 receptions for 50 yards. A.J. Brown had 5 receptions for 56 on 10 targets. We talked about these 2 wide receivers from Ole Miss, both coming out in 2019. A.J. Brown, DK Metcalf, since 2019, being 2 of only 6 wide receivers to get to 350 receptions, 5,000 yards, 40 touchdowns. A.J. Brown didn't get a chance to show up much in this game, but DK showed up late. He had the 34-yarder to set up the touchdown. Then that little short one that he caught on the last drive before the big throw to JSN where he one-handed it, kind of cradled the ball, caught it on the ground. I thought that was an impossible type of catch. Drew Lock definitely putting the ball in harm's way late in the game. But I think Drew Lock he's a capable quarterback. I talked about this on the Spaces one time with the homies. They was really, really dogging Drew Lock. And I was like, man, I don't know. Threw him to the Wolves a little early when he was in Denver. Definitely showed he had a little bit of swag. He's kind of like a Tommy DeVito type of player. He lacks the real capable arm strength of NFL quarterbacks. But he was 22 of 33, 208 yards and a touchdown, passer rating of 94. I do think Pete Carroll definitely helps them out over there. He's really good with quarterbacks. Kenneth Walker came back in a major way, 86 yards on 19 attempts. And Jackson Smith and Jigma, man, with the touchdown on the right side at the end of the game. A beautiful throw, but I don't know why the Philadelphia Eagles got James Bradberry one-on-one when you're only rushing 4. I saw Emmanuel Acho talking about this, and he thought it was a good idea. I'm like, Emmanuel Acho, man, I loved him when he was with Marcellus Wiley. I think with this new cast over there on Speak, not as big of a fan. Some of the takes are a little bit clickbaity, kind of want to just grab attention. But Jackson Smith did have 4 receptions, 48 yards on 4 targets, the last one being the most important. I definitely would not leave him out there, with James Bradberry. I thought that was a bad idea, a mismatch. And James Bradberry's never been a really solid cornerback when it comes to one-on-one man coverage. Now, the one last thing I want to talk about with this game, the Eagles did lose both of their coordinators in the offseason, right? And I talked about their DB coach because I saw this little statistic floating around on Facebook, of all places. Shout out to my homie, I believe it was Rashad who posted this. Passing yards allowed per game from the Philadelphia Eagles. 2022, last season, they were first in the NFL. They only allowed 171.6. This year, they're 28th, allowing 259.9. They lost their defensive backs coach, Denard Wilson, to the Ravens. The Ravens defense, their pass defense allowed 229.4 yards last year. That was 23rd. They're now only allowing 180.2 yards this year, which is 4th in the NFL. So I think that the Philadelphia Eagles, their offense is fairly the same. They found ways to win ugly early on this year. They're playing better competition. Last year's schedule was a little bit cupcake, but that defense, I think, is extremely regressed. They're not getting to the quarterback as much as they once were last season. And in the secondary, I know a lot of that's the same unit. You talked about this last week, too, losing C.J. Gardner-Johnson, who he was banged up. I forget what team he went to. Detroit. I was going to say that. I don't know why I thought he came from Detroit, but he came from the Saints, actually. And I think losing him definitely is hurting them a little bit. But that defense, I think if they're going to try to make a run here, they absolutely got to get it together. Before we kind of close this out, I do want to know your thoughts on this game. And I want to know what you think about this question right here. For the Eagles, are the Eagles still a true contender to beat the 49ers and represent the NFC in the Super Bowl after this 3-game losing streak that they're on right now? Teams kind of figuring them out. Jalen Hurts got a lot on his shoulders, and I feel like he's kind of trying to play hero ball just a little bit too much, trying to make the big play too often. You saw it at the end of this game. They tried to run a double move down, out, and up to A.J. Brown. Ball gets intercepted by Julian Love, and the rest is history.
I still think they're a contender. Yeah, I think that there's too much talent. Jalen Hurts to me is still, he's a premier quarterback in the National Football League, in my opinion. And if you have a premier quarterback in the NFL, you have a chance to contend. Okay, so for me, they're a contender. I might not look at them the same, as I did at some points during this season. But I'm not too concerned with a 3-game losing streak. I'm going to be curious to see how they bounce back from this. I did read where Jalen Hurts came out and said that, I don't want to misquote it. I should have wrote this down. But he said something along the lines of where they don't want it enough.
Yeah, I did see that quote.
Yeah, so for me, that's always been one of the things about Jalen Hurts that I've loved the most is just the way that he carries himself, win or lose. He's always hungry. He's never complacent. He just has that thing that you can't coach or teach, right? And so for me, I think that still leads them to be a contender. But there's definitely some flaws. I mean, you talked about defensively some flaws, but in the preview show, I talked about how the difference in their turnover margin between last year and this year is drastic, and that's super important. And once again, in this game, there were 2 turnovers. They didn't force any turnovers.
That was the story.
You have a backup quarterback. You should be able to force some turnovers. As good as Drew Lock's played, and they still should be able to force turnovers against a backup quarterback. I think that's something that teams should be doing in the National Football League. It's just, I think that's easily said. But, even though they had the 2 turnovers, people would be like, oh, well, the 2 turnovers didn't necessarily lead to any points. I understand that, but what it does is it's preventing them from scoring. And in the last 3 games, Philly scored 17, 13, and 19. They've lost all 3 of those games. Every other game that they've played this year, they scored over 20 points. So it's offensively, they haven't been able to put the points up on the board that we're accustomed to them doing. So I think that's a major issue. And then, the last drive of the game, you're talking about, it's not like it's Patrick Mahomes or Josh Allen or Lamar Jackson. Drew Lock goes 10 plays, 92 yards in 1 minute and 24 seconds.
Yeah. You saw DK Metcalf just stepping up in a major way. And I think there were some throws there from Drew Lock that were, very dangerous at the end of that game. You saw a couple of those where he made some mistakes out there, but I think his playmakers, stepped up where he lacked. And then when it came time to make the one big throw, that's all they really needed. And I think they scored. They scored 2. They left the Philadelphia Eagles not enough time to be able to drive down.
Put that 3 on the board for sure. And then
it felt like
turnover just. Once again, it didn't necessarily lead to points, but it prevented them from having an opportunity to win the game.
It stops you from scoring the points you need necessary to win the game. And I thought the shot was just too big. Jalen Hurts runs the little kind of run up the middle, which gained them about 25, 30 yards or something like that to get them close. They only needed 15 more yards in that, to get in field goal range to kick it to tie it. But you don't want to be trying to let a team like that hang around. And I thought the Philadelphia Eagles did that all day. I see a lot of people in the chat talking about the running game from the Philadelphia Eagles, which was not too poor in this game. I want to say Swift had about 70 yards in the game, and then Jalen Hurts had 80, right?
Yeah, so Swift, I think Jalen Hurts had 82. He led the Eagles in yards, but I want to say they put up a significant amount of rushing yards, actually.
They did. They outgained Seattle in rushing yards in this game. So, I think they did get back to it, but the problem for them was sustaining the drives, I thought, utilizing the running game to sustain drives. And Sirianni, you've noticed this year, not a lot of read option from Jalen Hurts. They're changing their style, and I don't know why teams get away from what works. We saw that with the New York Giants. They ran a system last year with Daniel Jones that worked. It won games, got us to 9 victories, and then they just want to abandon that type of game plan this year. I guess they're just kind of over-calculating it, thinking that teams have too much tape on what they did last season, but I do think Nick Sirianni is a bit in over his head when it comes to, going up against some of the upper tier teams in the NFC, especially when they have the coaching advantage, teams like the San Francisco 49ers, you're going up against Pete Carroll and the Seattle Seahawks here on Monday night. This was a game that I thought could have been a get-right game for them because the Seattle Seahawks definitely give you a little bit of leeway to run the ball against them, and they just didn't commit to it, and I thought when they got to the 10-point lead, the urgency. I saw Alvaro was talking about, that Jalen Hurts was questioning the commitment from his team. And I do think you see that. It was a little bit lackluster. It's I always talk about these windows. When you up 2 scores, when you could push a game to 3 scores, you will now pigeonhole a team into running a game plan that is very predictable. And in this game, the Philadelphia Eagles unfortunately never got the Seattle Seahawks in position to do that, although they kind of controlled the first half. The Seattle Seahawks didn't even score in the first half. You still don't come away with a large enough victory to be able to cruise to victory like we've seen from the Philadelphia Eagles last season in a bunch of games.
The total rushing yards for the Philadelphia Eagles in this game was 178.
That's big rushing. That's big rushing right there. So they were using the other backs as well. I know Swift had a good couple amount of yards there as well. I thought it was around 70 when I saw the box, and then Jalen Hurts. You get 2 touchdowns on the ground. Like you said, man, the turnovers absolutely a problem. But you do think that the Eagles are still in the mix there to compete with the 49ers, getting down to divisional games, championship games, stuff like that.
Yeah, and then I think also we have to remember too that when you get down into the playoffs, a lot of things change too. I'm not here to make excuses for the Philadelphia Eagles. They're being held accountable 1,000%. But I think they're a contender. The thing is like they have 3 games left, right?
Yep. 2 against the Giants.
Which might be beneficial to them to have this kind of like this hiccup before the end of the season, because sometimes teams, I'd never like to use this, and I feel like it's like a movie cliche where it's like, sometimes it's better to lose, instead of winning it all,
until you get ousted in the first round, and it was like, maybe we shouldn't have lost that game. I said that about the Cowboys last year, and then they ended up losing in the second round. I'm like, damn.
So it'll be interesting to see how they change things around, but they definitely need to get things right and get things right fast, because there's gonna be some sneaky teams. Whoever gets one of those last spots, and the Buccaneers are playing good football.
Yeah, they're decent.
The Rams, there's going to be some maybe even the Seahawks again. There's going to be some sneaky teams here that, you don't want to overlook. So the Eagles definitely have to work on some things if they want to get to the point where they see the 49ers at some point in the playoffs. But I do believe they're still a contender.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. All right, well, let's get these bouquet of flowers ready one time. Big shout out to the homie Afghan in the building, man. Salute to you, fam. I've been super tied up, but appreciate you pulling up, rocking out with us on the stream. Let's take it to the Dallas Cowboys, man, and talk about their matchup against Josh Allen and the Buffalo Bills. All right, Dallas Cowboys. I tried to represent for y'all on last show, man, when we did the preview show. Things did not go according to schedule here, okay? The Dallas Cowboys fall to 10-4. The Buffalo Bills improve to 8-6. The Bills win 31-10. Good God, the Beard got that number right on the button when he picked 31 for the Buffalo Bills as well. 10 points ties the Cowboys' lowest output of the season. They put up 10 points against the San Francisco 49ers in another blowout as well. The Bills hadn't won back-to-back games since week 2, and now they're sitting on 2 victories in a row here. The Bills are a really good team. I told the Beard this off air. I think that if they can get into the playoffs, they are going to be an absolute problem for one of these teams in the first round. And since 2021, they have 11 losses decided by a touchdown or less. So they're definitely a team that's been losing them close. They can compete with some of these really good teams, including the Dallas Cowboys and some of the good teams in the AFC. Cowboys came into this game with the #1 scoring offense. They were scoring over 30 points a game. And this one, they had 5 punts, 1 interception, and a field goal by the Cowboys. And they had, just 1 touchdown on the day. Pretty terrible for them Dallas Cowboys. It was right at the end. The Bills snapped the Cowboys' 5-game winning streak. Dak Prescott, my man, was not playing too good in this one. He was 21 of 34 for 134 yards, no touchdowns, 1 interception, a QBR of 38.5. His 6-game streak of multiple passing touchdowns comes to a damn end. No more shots at Daniel Jones when it comes to Dak Prescott and the streak of multiple touchdowns in consecutive games. He was sacked 3 times in this one, but he was under pressure all day. You saw he wasn't comfortable starting from the beginning of this game. I thought Tony Pollard was going to be one of the top-performing running backs this week. When we talked about him on the parlay, he did not have a big game. The yards per carry was pretty decent, but they couldn't commit to the run. 4.7 yards per carry for Tony Pollard, 11 for 52 yards. Josh Allen did not even have to show up in this game. Another thing that I thought was a typo on the box score, 7 of 15 for Josh Allen for 94 yards. 1 touchdown. His QBR was 53.8, but the story of the day was how they ran the ball, and they definitely did that behind James Cook, 25 carries for 179 yards. He was averaging 7.2 yards per carry. He did have a touchdown on the ground, 2 receptions for 42 yards. Talked about him on the parlay. He was in my sleeper section this past week. He had 141 scrimmage yards last week against the Kansas City Chiefs, who are another top defense in the NFL right now. Came out here against those Dallas Cowboys in that defense, and James Cook had more yards than the Cowboys. He had 221 total yards from scrimmage, and the Dallas Cowboys had just 195 yards in this game. The Bills rushed for 266 and 3 touchdowns. They dominated the time of possession, 35 minutes to 25 minutes pretty much there. And the Cowboys struggled on third down in this one. The Cowboys were 5 of 13 on third down. And we talked about the Philadelphia Eagles, and if they were ready, to compete with teams like the San Francisco 49ers, I kind of want to take this to the Dallas Cowboys now. Are the Dallas Cowboys not equipped to compete against the top-tier teams? We've seen this now against the San Francisco 49ers. Early on against the Philadelphia Eagles, they did get a little bit of revenge against those Philadelphia Eagles. Lost to some bum teams, kind of like the Arizona Cardinals early on in the season. And now you take this big L to a team that was sitting at 500 entering this game in the Buffalo Bills, who we know are very capable, but you would have thought that Josh Allen would have been the guy leading the charge for the Buffalo Bills. Instead, they just ran the ball right down the Dallas Cowboys' throats, and they lose this game in a major fashion, 31-10. What's your thoughts on the Cowboys going up against the top-tier teams, and what's in that bouquet from the Beard one time?
Well, listen, I just want to throw, because I have a lot of the same information here. I just want to throw one more little nugget into the sweet and sour sauce when it comes to the rushing. 20 rushing first downs from the Buffalo Bills in this game. Ridiculous rushing first downs. Like, that's crazy. That's a crazy number right there. I mean, all that being said, listen, the easy way out is to say no, right? From a Beard perspective, from a Washington fan perspective, from a Dallas Cowboy hater perspective, right? But I'm not here to do that. I'm not here to do that.
Is that right?
I'm not. No. I'm not taking the easy way out. Listen, the Dallas Cowboys, they still have some more tough competition ahead, right? They got Detroit. Who else do they have? They have Detroit, Miami, and then Washington. Is that their last 3 games?
They do end the year against y'all. Is that what it is?
Yeah. But I think they have Detroit and Miami their next 2 games. If that's the case, that's it. So
Miami coming up first, and then Detroit. Yep.
That's gonna be the real test here, because some may say that with the Eagles, they play that's top tier team, right? But it's a division opponent. The division games can just be like that, sort of situation. So if you're looking outside of the division and you're looking at top tier teams that they're playing, you're looking at San Francisco and you're looking at Buffalo, and both of the results are pretty bad. I think that they're equipped to answer the question specifically.
I like that you really broke down the vocabulary. That's how you got to do.
I think they are equipped to compete against top-tier teams because of the playmakers they have on defense, the way that Bland has played, the way Stephon Gilmore has played. You still have Micah Parsons. Micah Parsons, no matter what you say, he always has the potential. Listen, you want to talk about game managers versus game changers? Yeah. Micah Parsons is a game changer on defense. He can be that for them. So, and then offensively, Dak has proven that he can take care of business. And, CeeDee Lamb has proven that he is a top-tier wide receiver. I think Jake Ferguson has come along well. It's the same questions for Dallas and they've gotten a little bit better. They weren't that bad in penalties in this game. I mean, it's always tough. It's always tough for me to tell, because when I look at my timeline, it's all I see are like Cowboys fans and Eagles fans arguing with each other, and a lot of it is information on
referees
the
complaining about the refs. Mm-hmm.
So like but the same things about Dallas. And I think that you have really hammered this down, and that's the running game. Who is going to help Pollard in the running game? I think that is starting to show more and more as the season progresses, and then obviously the running defense. The run defense is just it's been their Achilles heel for what feels like 2 years now. And I think the Bills came in here and showed like, hey, you can beat Dallas if you run the ball down their throat, and not even necessarily like literally, but run the ball a lot and do it successfully. And also if you can pressure Dak. I know they lost some offensive linemen at points during this game, which might have, caused some stuff too. But it just, they were flying. Buffalo was flying on defense in this game.
And Dak couldn't get the ball out of his hands quickly. I noticed that in this game. And he took some big shots, man. On the one where they threw the flag, where he was trying to slide, he took a big shot to the helmet. A lot of quarterbacks don't even get up from those kind of shots. And I do think that the game plan was a little bit flawed. The weather was a little bit shaky, too, in this game, from what I remember. So I think that kind of played its role, too. But, to answer the question as well, I do think that they're equipped, and not only from a player standpoint, I think they're equipped from a coaching standpoint, too, with Dan Quinn on the defense, Mike McCarthy calling plays. On the road, it definitely has been a lot tougher. These next couple of games coming up, 2 out of the 3 are going to be on the road, too. And I think for the Dallas Cowboys, it would be important to get that number 1 seed in the NFC East to guarantee some home games. And even, to try to get the number 1 seed in the NFC conference would be great for them. I think that they do still have a shot to do that, being now a game back from the San Francisco 49ers, but that's not likely. So you're going to have to go on the road and try to find a way to win some games here. They, like you talked about before, this might be a good thing for the Dallas Cowboys to lose a game like this and then regain that urgency that you need to try to stride and go into the playoffs and try to beat some of these teams. I think that might even be a better factor for the coaching staff more than the players out there, because you got to be able to adjust in these games. And right from the onset, I mean, this game was 21-3 in no time. Like, I looked up and I'm just like, damn, they're just running the ball. And like, the Cowboys could not sustain drives. I almost thought I was looking at replays of James Cook getting runs and getting into the end zone. I'm just like, what is going on with the Dallas Cowboys here? So I had no clue this one would pan out the way that it did. Sometimes you got to get punched in the mouth like this. I thought Buffalo came out and showed you that they were the more physical team right off the bat as well.
Yeah. Achane and Mostert next week, though. It's gonna be
tough.
It's gonna be tough. But you know who else is equipped to compete against top tier teams?
I'm gonna guess it's Tudo.
Tudo with the $4.99.
Tudo with the new profile picture. What? I'll tear somebody up out here. Big shout out Tudo, man.
Listen, it's not even the upper body, dude. The quads. Like, what are you hiding in those pockets?
Two quads.
Dude?
Two quads.
$4.99 super chat says massive salutes and respects to Awthentik and The Beard #1. Roadmaps, facts all day, gold nuggets encyclopedia, and please slap all Rams. Nobody's losers out of the front door, hard and fast. Fist pump, Italy. Shout out Tudo.
Big shout out to Tudo, man. Tudo, we need you out there on that offensive line, bro. This Giants offensive line, bro. And as far as the Nuggets, man, the Nuggets, I've been dipping the Nuggets, man, but I don't know, man. Awthentik's, keys to victories in his roadmaps, man. They've been a little suspect.
Listen, roadmaps. Listen, I got the roadmap. Authentik got the keys, right? You can't go on the road without the keys, okay?
The keys in the car,
it's not our fault. We are supplying the keys and the directions. But the Commanders and the Giants, they're throwing out the window the roadmap, and they're just going down their own path.
This reminds me of one time I was in New York, right? And I was with the homie Noel and a couple other homies, right? And we went to the pizza shop and we parked the car right in front of the pizza shop, right? And you know how there's like those like drains, right by the edge of the road and whatnot. And I can't remember if it was me. I don't think it was me, because this ain't my kind of swag. I think it was another homie. I think it was Noel's cousin. Came out the pizza shop and threw the keys to Noel. And he tried to catch him, like, kind of yoink it out the air, slap the keys into the drain, bro. So all like 4 or 5 of us, he drove a little 4-door Toyota Tercel back in the day. And all 5 of us, dog, we literally picked up the car because we were illegally parked. We picked up the car and moved it into a parking spot. And this is how it's kind of been the last couple of weeks for us. It's been a disaster over here. For the people that I gave terrible fantasy advice to the last couple of weeks, I told you I'm not a financial advisor, but I do apologize sincerely from the bottom of my heart, yo. The Zach Moss takes, the CeeDee Lamb joints from this week, A.J. Brown. I apologize to y'all. But in total, Dallas Cowboys got to get back on track here. I think got to get to that #1 spot in the NFC East. I think that's most important for them. Get yourself a home game.
They haven't lost at home all year, so.
And that might be sketchy too. You go into the playoffs with no losses at home. That might be a little bit sketchy too, but we'll see how things pan out, man. You any last thoughts on this Dallas Cowboys game?
No, I'm a little upset. I'm a little hurt.
That it wasn't a closer game?
No, I don't see Brother L. I don't see Marcus. I don't see Monique.
Nobody want to show up when you try to bring some real
I
flowers.
don't see Kai 001.
Mm-hmm. They sad sitting at home today. Huh? I hope y'all catch this replay. This is for y'all right here.
Nobody. Come on, man. I wasn't gonna hurt y'all. I said
I'm a little sad.
I literally would answer this question like the best way possible, and they weren't here to hear me say it.
Yeah, pretty bad, man. It's pretty bad. You know, they only show up when they get victories.
Editing department, I'm gonna need you to clip this up and tag each single one of them on Twitter.
I'm with you.
Thank you.
I'm with you. I will CC the email to the editing department for sure. Maybe even the graphics department. We might get some Monique and some Brother L graphics.
This is big shout out to Chef in the chat because I just want to touch on that. The individual was not pleased with the music in the background.
Oh yeah, that was pretty funny. Yo, listen, we was low key getting fried, bro, on our last video. I don't know if you saw all the comments. We was low-key getting fried. I kind of like that. You know what I'm saying? I'm confident in what I do, man. It's all good. As long as you hear and you represent, man, that was definitely a funny vibe, though. That was definitely a funny vibe.
Gregory, I see you, bud. And that's why I didn't say your name, because I seen you in here the whole time. I appreciate you. You're here for it. Win, lose, or draw. I love you for that, Gregory.
Yeah, the other three, we got some words. But let's get off into this Giants game, then we'll get off into that Commanders game and get y'all up out of here one time. Let me get this right here.
Giants are on the board with 11:16 to go here in the third.
All right, let's talk about it, man. But you didn't answer me, Beard. You know, I don't know if you saw the rest of the fries we were getting in the comment section on the videos, bro. Go back and take a look at that video, bro. We were getting low key cooked, bro. It's kind of crazy. It's kind of crazy. Getting low key cooked. I'm over here defending myself, like, God damn, bro, it's getting real bad. But speaking of my New York Giants, man. All right. Get to this little section here, you know, and talk about this. I did talk about this game a little bit on Bleacher Report after. Tough loss, man. Tough loss. Me and you both, we picked the New York Giants to win this game. I kind of picked it in, close fashion. I thought New York Giants were going to handle business. They fall to 5-9. New Orleans Saints improved to 7-7. They're looking like they're maybe headed towards the playoffs. My New York Giants, they said, we will no longer put the New York Giants on the In the Hunt graphic anymore. Looks like we're cooked. I don't know if y'all are mathematically eliminated. I'm pretty sure we are.
We're officially eliminated now.
Yeah.
We're out.
It's a good look, man. Giants lose this one 24-6. 0 points in the second half. It was 7-6. Saints leading the game at the half. I look up Tommy DeVito's 9 of 16 for 73 yards, 0 touchdowns, no interceptions. He had 4 rushes for 36 yards. Saquon had 6 carries for 8 yards at the half. Okay. 1 for 9 on third down, 2.8 yards per play for the New York Giants at the half, 2.2 yards per pass, which is crazy. We were actually averaging more per run than we were per pass in this game. DeVito had been sacked 4 times at the half. Not even 100 total yards. Not one red zone trip for the New York Giants. Now, the Giants had a field goal on the first drive, and from that point on, it was 5 punts, 2 turnover on downs, and a field goal. Of those 5 punts, 4 of those drives ended in 3 and out. Everything on the line. You heard Saquon Barkley about a week ago say, we in this motherfucker, is what he said, right? To be honest, is what he said at the end of that. And then he said, I'm going to keep it real. To be honest and keep it real. Listen, I used to have a boss, right, that he would be like, I'm going to keep it real. And every time he said that, I knew he wasn't going to keep it real. Saquon said, if we take care of what we got to take care of, everyone can say what they want about the season. It's week 14 and everything we want is still right there. And I think anybody with 2 eyeballs and a brain between 2 ears knew that the New York Giants were likely to not make the playoffs. This team looked flat coming out. And Tommy DeVito said he didn't have his swag in this one and he didn't have his confidence. And I saw something going around today on an article, and a couple of my homies, shout out to Ash Money one time. Shout out to Sal. Tommy DeVito and his agent decided that it was a good idea to start selling photos with fans for over $100 to just come and take a picture with Tommy DeVito. I think maybe that got in the way maybe of his confidence. That's just my guess. Now, Giants were coming off a 3-game winning streak. The Giants are now 100% going to finish this season under 500. This was the 5th game of the season where the Giants had no offensive touchdown. The 4th time that the Giants were scoreless in the second half. The 5th game that the Giants had less than 200 total yards. 60 total rushing yards was the third lowest of the season. Barkley came in needing 34 yards to reach 1,000 scrimmage yards on the season. 34. He got 37. He barely made it there. Barely made it there. Congratulations to Saquon Barkley for getting to 1,000 scrimmage yards. The Giants are 3-0 this year when they score over 20 points. So the goal for our team here is obviously offensively, you got to score over 20 points. And I saw Sal, shout out to my homie Sal from He's a Giant Pod. Go check them out. They do some really good work over there, especially draft content. He said Wink should be firing Brian Dable, not the other way around. And I think that's definitely what it is. And that's facts right there. The microscope has been on Wink Martindale, coming from a perspective of Brian Dable. There, the report came out with Glazer and all that stuff. It's been the offense that has been getting punched in the mouth this year. So I think that this team definitely, and people gave me flack for this tweet when I said that this team needs to look at themselves in the mirror, especially from an offensive standpoint, especially Brian Dable, who had no answers in this game. It was good to see Darren Waller back on the field in this one. And before I kind of continue on this rant, because, we definitely going to talk about the quarterback for sure, I want to show this clip real quick from Darren Waller getting interviewed after the game.
The Saints did not have a very highly ranked rush defense, but you guys couldn't get the run game going. How surprising was that?
Just have played against that defense, and they have some guys that have been there for a while. Like if you, Demario Davis and Werner, they're able to get downhill. They're able to wreck some things because they're coming in there. They're choosing violence. So. And they got talented defensive linemen. They got safeties that are versatile. So if you don't show up ready to down in, down out, dominate, they'll bring it to you.
This man said they chose violence. Okay, he has experience playing against the Saints, obviously, when he spent his time over there with the Raiders. To me, that just shows you that team was more physical than our team. Now, let's talk about the quarterback situation here just a little bit before I kick it off to the beard. Tommy DeVito. 20 of 34, 177 yards on this one. I don't even want to see that today, please. Too serious. He was sacked 7 times on the day, and he lost 57 yards on those sacks. So it's not that he was just taking sacks, okay? This dude was dropping back. There was a time where the New York Giants, in the first half, I believe it was, they were in field goal range. This dude gets sacked for 10-yard loss on 3rd down. And now you get knocked out of field goal range. You got our punter who's playing kicker as well because our kicker ended up hurting his hamstring in this game. So the Scottish Hammer had to go out there and hammer some field goals to try to keep the Giants in this game. Those were the only points the New York Giants got on the board. It's back to our regularly scheduled programming with Tommy DeVito, who's been sacked 35 times in 7 games. We'll say 7 appearances. I know, it's not 7 total starts, right? Much worse than y'all quarterback over there, if you ask me, because that's in 7 appearances, not even 7 full games. Sam Howell has now played 14 games this season. If you double up that 35, it's not going to be where Sam Howell is. It's going to be at 70, okay? Sam Howell's sitting somewhere in the 50-something range, right? Saquon Barkley, just 9 carries for 14 yards. His longest run was 4 yards. After the game, he was like, I don't even think I breached 5 or 6 or 7 yards on any of those runs. No, Saquon, it was 4 yards. And to me, the most frustrating part of this game plan for the New York Giants is they're going up against a defense that had allowed 191 yards in the last 3 games on average on the ground. They were the 26th ranked rush defense in the entire league. And you get us 12 carries from all of the running backs, 4 carries from the quarterback, 9 carries from Saquon Barkley. I've been talking about this for too long. This dates all the way back to when we finished out last season. When you look at the games against the Colts, we clinched and we beat a bad Indianapolis Colts team last year. Saquon Barkley not involved in the game plan. You get to the playoffs. They play the Minnesota Vikings. Terrible pass defense. I get it, but I thought that we were going to go out there and run the ball. Saquon Barkley averaging over 5 yards a carry. He gets 9 carries in that game. Keeps that game a little bit close where the New York Giants have to kind of, do some things to win that game late. And then you go up against the Philadelphia Eagles in the divisional round. Saquon Barkley gets 9 carries in that game as well. He only had 4 carries in the first half. You start the year with a fully healthy team here against the Dallas Cowboys. Saquon Barkley gets 12 touches. Now you're going up against the Saints. I think that this game plan was extremely flawed. Why in the world would you want to have an undrafted rookie free agent in Tommy DeVito drop back and throw the ball for a career high? Okay, he got a career high in completions at 20. Whoop-de-doo. But 34 times for an undrafted rookie free agent. And the last thing I'll say about this, I'm on my Twitter all day. Y'all know how I do. I got time. I'm in the studio right here. And anytime I tweet something out about we need to go out there and draft our quarterback, it somehow turns into What makes you think that drafting a quarterback in the first round means that he's going to be a guarantee? Nobody is saying it's going to be a guarantee. But in order to win, you must play the game. We have not won the game of finding our franchise quarterback. And then I'm sitting up here, and I'm sure you saw it in the notifications today. I'm up here arguing with people who literally think that I'm being too hard on a quarterback, undrafted, rookie free agent, and Tommy DeVito, right? I'm being too hard on him. I'm not giving him a chance. Beard, tell me an undrafted, free agent quarterback who had any success outside of Kurt Warner.
I don't think that there's really any of them out there. I mean, none that come to my mind. I mean, it's who?
I always tell
Doug
people, bro,
Flutie?
like, was he undrafted? He might have been.
Because I think he went to the CFL first.
Let's say it's Doug Flutie, okay, for the sake of the argument. Let's say it's Doug Flutie, okay? I always tell you on here, right, like, it don't matter if our takes in the long run are wrong. It doesn't matter, right? The point is to come with a realistic take, right? How can I sit up here realistically thinking that Tommy DeVito is a franchise quarterback option when Joe Shane and them just gave Daniel Jones $80 million, almost $90 million guaranteed, $160 million contract, and it's looking like it's going the wrong way, right? So now we want them to double down on that and move into the next season thinking that if Tommy DeVito can go out here and, let's say, beat the Philadelphia Eagles, that's another narrative I'm seeing going around. If he could beat the Philadelphia Eagles, we got to consider him for next year. No, we don't. Use your eyeballs.
Yeah.
Look at what Tommy DeVito is doing out there on the field. And I'm not saying like, yo, this dude's completely cooked. He can't have no success in the NFL. But the realistic option right now for the New York Giants is one of two options. You either double down on this Daniel Jones fiasco of what happened this year, and you just commit to him next year as the starting quarterback, and you pray to whoever you pray to that Daniel Jones can get it together. Or you absolutely got to go out here and draft a quarterback. People think that if we spend our first round capital on a quarterback, that means that we cannot go out here and address the offensive line and other holes that we have on this roster. What do they think we're going to do with the first pick in the first round? The New York Giants draft a quarterback. Second round come around. Oh, with the 50-something pick, the New York Giants drafted another quarterback. Third round comes around. Do they think that we're going to draft another quarterback? Because they act as if we draft a quarterback that we cannot spend the other, 6 picks that the New York Giants have on drafting and addressing other positions. That we can't go into free agency and address some of these other positions. Like, yo, we got to start thinking with a sound mind here, y'all. Like, I will never sit up here and tell you that what I say is the gospel or is the Bible. It is simply just one man's opinion. But if you're going to try to refute my opinion, right? Because another one I said today was the New York Giants, last time that they started a quarterback who was drafted with the number 1 pick in the draft, we got 2 Super Bowls out of it. People looking for semantics on that, so I had to word it a certain way, saying that the last time we started a quarterback who was drafted number 1 overall, I still got people who can't read on Twitter that come into the comment section and go, oh, but we didn't draft Eli Manning number 1. That's the point. We're sitting at number 5 right now or something like that as well. So if the New York Giants got to trade up to go get their quarterback, it is the most important position in football for a reason. Why we don't want to address it, I don't understand it, but I do understand it. These are the people that they still want to die on the Daniel Jones mountain. And I get it. Why don't you just stand 10 toes down and just say, listen, I don't think we need to draft a quarterback. I got faith in Daniel Jones as being a franchise quarterback. And pull the reasons why that is, because you can. If you want to make an argument for Daniel Jones being a franchise quarterback moving forward, you can absolutely make an argument for that. He's had all these different coordinators, all these different coaches, all these different moving parts on this offense, so many different combinations on the offensive line, never had a wide receiver 1. There's reasons you can create and make a narrative for Daniel Jones being the starting quarterback. I would much more respect that take than saying that I should have faith in an undrafted rookie free agent quarterback in Tommy DeVito, who's out here in his spare time taking pictures for money, my dude, like he's a rap artist. Come on, man. That's all I got on it. That's all I got on it. That's all I got on it.
Listen, as far as Tommy DeVito goes, it's a fun story, right? And I think sometimes there's certain tiers to fans, okay? And I've lived this already. I've lived this with Taylor Heineke, okay? I've lived this. I know this road that you guys who are Tommy DeVito believers and fans are going down. I understand. It's fun. This is the version of Taylor Heineke reaching over for the pylon. Okay, like.
Oh, you digging on the homie Taylor Heineke right now. Because this Tommy DeVito thing is 3 games, man. This is 3 good games.
I understand that, but I'm not necessarily comparing the level of play, right? I'm just comparing the undrafted free agent falling in love, calling a guy your franchise quarterback who's had a few good games, right? Because that's what people want to do, and there's so much stuff that's going into the game of football, right? And to sit here and we're going to talk about this a little bit with the Commanders, the name of the game is quarterback to lead you to the promised land. That's the name of the game. It's just, there's no ifs, ands, or buts around it. There's no way to get around that. There's a lot of other pieces that need to be put into play. Like, you're going to have some questions about the coaching staff. You're going to have to look at the coaching staff when you get into the offseason, primarily on the offensive side of the ball. You're going to have to address the wide receiver position. You're going to have to address the offensive line. I think defensively, and this is something we've talked about at times during the season, there's a lot of really good young pieces on that defense. So you have to look at it from that standpoint that every team goes into the offseason. That's why there's a list of needs. It's not a need. Like, I learned this the hard way. We were not a quarterback away, no matter how many times we tried to determine that. And it takes an entire offseason. It takes an entire front office to put together those pieces. Okay. And like Awthentik said, there are avenues to do so. Besides, the number 1 pick that you pick is not going to be everything. A majority of your team is built in those 2nd, 3rd, 4th rounds. Okay, that's where you're going to build your guys at. So I think that there definitely has to be looked at, and Tommy DeVito is not the answer. I would hope not, that nobody really believes that Tommy DeVito is the answer. I think it's interesting though, because I think
you will be surprised how many people. I was arguing with this one dude today, like 30 tweets back and forth about him thinking like Tommy DeVito has the capability to be a franchise quarterback.
And that's the thing. It's like, I think Tommy DeVito has played well enough to be a backup in the National Football League, right? But the franchise quarterback, think about that. Okay, I'm going to use Cam Newton right now. To me, a franchise quarterback has to be a game changer if you want to be a franchise quarterback. I don't agree with that. I don't like the term franchise quarterback to begin with, right? But I think in that term, if you're going to, it's the way that some people use franchise quarterback. You got to
think about how Cam even worded that, though. He talked about elite game managers. He even listed Peyton Manning as an elite game manager.
Yeah, I understand that. But what I'm saying is that the word game changer, right? A franchise quarterback is a guy that can lead your team to the Super Bowl, right? That's what I think.
I don't agree with that. I think that Dak Prescott's a franchise quarterback. He's a game manager. He's a good one, a good game manager.
So let me get off of the game manager I just wanted to use game changer. I'm not necessarily talking about game manager, okay? But what I'm saying is that is Tommy DeVito, when you look at Tommy DeVito, for those of you that think this, when you look at Tommy DeVito, does he look like a guy that's going to lead you to a Super Bowl?
Absolutely not.
Absolutely not. And I think that outside, and what I learned from this game too is, and to double down on my comments about the offensive coaching staff here for the New York Giants, they have to find the game plans are just not matching up the way that they should be. We sit up here, and obviously we're not the only ones. You heard the reporter ask Darren Waller, and Darren Waller, kind of gave you a little bit of a politically correct answer to some degree, but he also said, they came to play a lot harder than we did. But in the grand scheme of things, they didn't run the ball against a team that is giving up 190 plus yards over the last how many games it was.
He said they chose violence.
And the offensive line,
about that, bro.
The offensive line was pretty bad
horrible
in this game. Run block, pass block, it doesn't matter. But obviously, not all of those sacks were probably on the offensive line. A lot of that was on Tommy DeVito. His level of decisiveness was not the same in this game as it was previously. But there's a lot of holes here that need to be addressed for the New York Giants. Tommy DeVito is not going to fix those problems. The big question is, I don't think Tommy DeVito's even on the table. I think the big question here is going to be Daniel Jones or not. Tommy DeVito is maybe played himself into a backup position if they decide to stick with Daniel Jones. Even if they stick with Daniel Jones and they don't draft a quarterback in the first round, there's no way the New York Giants go through an entire draft next year without drafting a quarterback. Right?
Yeah, I don't think so. I really don't. I think that they're going to have to address that like in the first couple of rounds for sure. And shout out to the chat because they brought up Tony Romo, who's a guy who did have some success.
Yeah.
But think about the odds of that. If you were to put a pool of all the undrafted free agent quarterbacks that have played at any point in the NFL, and we can only think of, let's say, 3 names, like I can't bank on that. I don't think that that's logical to bank on that. For me, that's just not the vibe. And I love Tony Romo as a quarterback. I just thought he couldn't get over the hump. Very similar to Dak Prescott in that form too. But the New York Giants just, a bad team this year. We talked about this at the beginning of the year, and I thought that the Giants and the Commanders were both going to be fighting for the bottom of this division coming into this year. And they both struggled in this game, and I think we can't go without talking about the defense. The defense was terrible. They couldn't stop the run in the second half. They came into this game with 14 takeaways in the last 4 games, and they got 0. Derek Carr was sacked 1 time. It took a safety blitz for that to happen from Jason Pinnock. Dexter Lawrence had 2 tackles, a quarterback hit. Kayvon Thibodeau had 1 tackle, and that's it. Adoree Jackson was getting picked on all day, looking terrible. Penalties, getting cooked twice on 3rd and long by A.T. Perry. A.T. Perry had 5 receptions coming into this game. You can't be getting cooked. It's time to move on from Adoree Jackson and bring in the younger talent and see what you got in these guys. The Trey Hawkins, get them more PT going into next year. I don't think that Adoree Jackson is going to be a guy that's on this roster next year. But it's just the state of the New York Giants right now. Like those wins, man, I think those wins did more damage than anything. The 3-game winning streak, because now it's like all you did was ruin a little bit of draft capital. And going into the draft here, you saw the Carolina Panthers get a fluky win against the Atlanta Falcons this week. You really had your shot at your quarterback right there. And I think that Brian Daboll, to me, is looking like the tank is well alive. And I know people don't think that this comes from the coaching staff, and I'm only speculating here right now. But, like, when you see Pat Leonard ask him in the press conference, like, well, why aren't y'all starting Tyrod Taylor? Like, is Tommy DeVito really a better quarterback than Tyrod Taylor? I don't think so at this moment in time, especially when you look at what Tyrod Taylor can do pre-snap, how he can manage the game. It's much better than what a guy like Tommy DeVito does. And I see the offensive line breaking down play after play in this game, and that reminded me a lot of Daniel Jones. How much of that is pre-snap? How much of that is on the quarterback not accounting for the right protection schemes to be able to put himself in a position to win? And then also just from a coaching standpoint, no adjustments, no committing to the run. When we talked about keys to victory for this game, one of the biggest keys to me was committing to Saquon Barkley, even if he was getting stopped like that. You look at the first half against the Green Bay Packers, Saquon Barkley had 18 yards on 8 carries. The first carry of the game was 10 yards. So he had 7 carries for 8 yards outside of that in the first half. It did not stop them from committing to the run in the second half. Saquon Barkley ended up breaking a couple of runs that put the Giants in position. I know he had the fumble late in that game, but he broke some big runs in that game to keep us alive. Saquon Barkley is a home run hitting type of running back. You got to commit to it, especially against teams that play this bad against the run, and to only have your best player offensively have 9 carries. And I like what I saw to Darren Waller, some toughness, but this team did not show up to fight. I saw when Darren Waller broke that, I think it was like a 40-yard reception that he had. It might have been like 30-something, 34 yards or something, right? He caught the ball across the middle. He broke the run, and when he saw the defender on his left, he slid and went down. I was like, dog, like that does not say to me a team that represents what Saquon Barkley talked about. We in this motherfucker, real talk, to be honest, all this stuff. That does not speak to that team. And I don't want to sit up here and question, the team's effort and all that, right? But like that wasn't a team that was going out there trying to die on that field for the victory that they needed in that game. And I see Stephen White, I see you talking about the offensive line matters most. No, it don't. Your franchise quarterback matters the most. And then it's the offensive line. I'll set you up a scenario, Beard, and for y'all in the chat. If you had a choice between the elite of the quarterbacks right now, hand pick them, top 3, you could go Patrick Mahomes and whoever else you want, or the elite of the offensive lines, which one would you pick first?
Quarterback.
Obviously, right? So to me, we can't sit up here. I don't think anybody in their right mind thinks that offensive line is more important than a franchise quarterback, especially if you could get an elite one. And this draft is full of those guys. Who knows how it's going to pan out? But to have the opportunity, I'm not in the scouting department. I'm not going out here to all these games like Joe Shane and the rest of these dudes. But if they deem one of these guys being a franchise guy, a Caleb Williams, a Drake May, or even, any of the other guys that go beyond the top two guys, from Jaden McDaniels to J.J. McCarthy to Bo Nix to Michael Penix, who Stan is extremely high on Michael Penix. I like Michael Penix too. I think he's the most pro-ready of all the other guys, right? If you see one of these guys, go get him. Why are we sitting up here talking about offensive line? We got a bookend left tackle already on the roster. We got a center who we know is a dog. Definitely got beat in this game once. It was pretty ugly, too, reaching out, trying to get a block. But for the most part, JMS has been a bright spot as a rookie on this offensive line. Keep building that offensive line. But, people are sitting up here acting like we don't got Andrew Thomas on the blind side to protect the quarterback. The franchise quarterback, in my opinion, is the most important position on the field. You got to go out there and draft him. I think you get the head start in this draft class because you don't want to end up in a situation like the Pittsburgh Steelers where you got talent around the quarterback, and then when it comes time to draft a quarterback, you get the pick between Malik Willis and Kenny Pickett. I don't want to end up in that situation and be right back where we started, trying to mold a quarterback who really don't got the capability or the skill set to bring the New York Giants back to where they need to be. We missed on Daniel Jones. Unless something drastically changes, we missed on Daniel Jones. So to try to double down on this whole undrafted rookie free agent situation is not like this dude's coming out. We can't forget, guys who got drafted in the late round, when they came out on the field and started playing, they were really dogs on the field. Dak Prescott won co-rookie of the year, I believe it was.
Yeah.
Come on, dog. Okay, if Tommy DeVito came out week 3 and he balled out the whole entire season, I might be considering this. I still would be like, go out there and draft a quarterback. You even saw it with Washington when they traded 3 first-rounders to get RG3. They still doubled down and drafted another quarterback in the late rounds. Insurance. So for me, I think the New York Giants absolutely got to go out there and do that.
Big shout out to Tuto with a $4.99 super chat. Says Awthentik and The Beard. Number 1, I'll never be able to play in the NFL. If players not wearing the same jersey on the pitch, they're going down hard and fast and ain't getting up no mo. Fist pump, Italy. Shout out.
I think Tudo would, we'd have to worry about the penalties if we signed Tudo.
Yeah,
definitely be an issue.
Well, ejections, those sort of situations. Yeah. Big shout out to Talking Echo for the $9.99 super chat. Says if Washington's new GM is aggressive, then there's a possibility that the Giants might face Caleb, Hurts, and Dak in the division. Shane needs to get aggressive because JD might not be there at 6.
Yeah, I do. What's the draft order? Let me take a look at Tankathon right now just to refresh.
I think we're sitting at 4 right now.
Y'all are sitting at 4?
I believe so.
Yeah, y'all sitting at 4. Bears at 5 with the second pick, their first pick from Carolina at 1, and the Giants at 6. So, yeah, I mean, Washington could be that team that would be aggressive, right? I mean, you would imagine that, Chicago might stay with Justin Fields. That's the thing.
It's going to be an interesting turn. It's going to be – I think you're going to see some trades go down because I really think you're going to see some trades go down.
You think Chicago do that back-to-back, that first pick? You think they do that? Remember, they traded the first pick to Carolina last year for them to get Bryce Young. Now they're going to have that first pick because of the way that the Carolina Panthers and Bryce Young have played. You think they trade it again, maybe?
I don't know. They might move. Do they? If you decide to use that pick on a quarterback, you can probably trade Justin Fields for some good draft capital too, I'd imagine. What do you think Justin Fields is worth on the trade market?
For me, or on the market? For me, I'm not. I would do nothing more than a 4th, because he's entering the end of his rookie contract. Last year, I think the value was a lot higher. You could maybe get 2 picks for him though, like a 2nd and a 4th, maybe. I don't know, something like that. But he's playing good football. That's the thing. It's I think you got to get a coach in there to get his mechanics right. You got some players over there that are kind of ready to win now, especially on the defensive side of the ball. DJ Moore is a wide receiver, obviously. Guys like Cole Kmet aren't getting any younger. Darnell Mooney, bro, that is one of the biggest misses I've ever had in my entire career of talking football. When I thought that kid could possibly be a low tier number 1, he's not good, man.
And just to answer this also is I don't think I did. Well, let me rephrase this because who knows? We don't even know who Washington's new GM is going to be. But I personally would not be aggressive to move up from 4 to 1 or 4 to 2. I just
Well, he's saying, that the Giants would have to be aggressive, I think.
No,
he said Shane needs to get aggressive.
If Washington's new GM is aggressive, then there's a possibility. So saying that we might move up to 1 or 2 to get Caleb,
or maybe just being aggressive on the quarterback. I don't know exactly what he meant, because it's not like for certain that you guys are going to draft a quarterback. Even at 4, let's say y'all draft a quarterback at 4, because right now the Arizona Cardinals got the 3rd pick. They're not getting a quarterback. So, it'd be I don't know, man. What are they going to do with Kyler Murray? Put him on the bench or just sit the rookie? Kyler Murray's contract seems too deep to be able to draft another quarterback and waste that capital. I think you got to try to win now if you're the Cardinals. I don't look at them as a potential quarterback team. But I think he might be saying as well, y'all could draft Jaden Daniels at 4, which would jack us up at 6. You can't, I'm not going to say you can't reach on Michael Penix at 6 or one of the other quarterbacks, but it's going to put the Giants in a really, really tough situation if y'all draft Jaden Daniels.
Here we go. Talking Echo again with the $4.99 super chat says, Caleb is a local kid, and I'm dead scared Washington might go get him, and the Giants will be stuck with DJ in a division with Caleb Williams, Jalen Hurts, and Dak Prescott.
Now, let's say they do that. So let's say they trade up and they get him. They're going to take the spot probably from Chicago. I don't see New England trading out of number 2, right? Because New England absolutely needs a quarterback right now. So they're probably eyeing Drake May right now. Y'all jump up and get the number 1 spot from Chicago that owns the Carolina pick, then one of them is probably going to get y'all pick out of it.
Yeah.
Which would be the Bears again. And that would be a good strategy for the Bears if they are going to commit to Justin Fields, because then you'll have picks 4 and 5 to get the 2 best players available that you want to improve the roster around Justin Fields, which then I think leaves Jaden Daniels for the New York Giants. It would force you almost to draft him.
I don't foresee Washington moving up from the 4 spot because you've accumulated so much good draft capital right now. I wouldn't, and if I'm coming in as a new owner and a new GM and a new head coach and as many holes as there is in this Washington roster, there might not be as many holes as we think because a lot of this might be on coaching, but we have to approach it as if there's a lot of holes on this roster, right? To me, it would make more sense to draft a quarterback at 4 if you're going that direction and just staying put at 4 and using the rest of that capital to kind of fill in these holes, as opposed to getting rid of all that capital to move up 2 more spots. I don't think that Caleb Williams or Drake May is that much of an upgrade to trade away that much capital for.
No, I'm with you on that. And I think that if you stayed at 4, it might be a better option to just not take a quarterback at all. Just try to keep building up the roster. But like you said, new GM. And I shout out to Talking Eco, first of all, for supporting the channel. I do want to address one here from Steven Arsh right here. He says, Mahomes ain't saving this offense right now. Why are we talking about it? Okay, let me tell you why we're talking about it. People have this misunderstanding that when you're in search for a franchise quarterback, that you're thinking is going to save the following season. The goal to get a franchise quarterback has more to do with the future than it does with the present. And that's the problem, at least in my perspective, with a lot of the takes that I'm seeing inside of the Giants community. They think that when you're aggressive and you want to go get the quarterback, that means, oh, we need to go win now. That's why all of these people were completely wrong on the Daniel Jones situation last season, right? Because they thought that the New York Giants had one option only. And because Daniel Jones and this team won a playoff game, that we had to pay him because our success needed to be linear. Our success needed to continue to go up, and that was the biggest mistake that this whole regime has made since they've been here, is paying Daniel Jones the $160 million contract, $80 million guaranteed, because they thought it needed to be linear. And fans were pigeonholed into thinking that, oh, we can't bring in a Jacoby Brissett, which we're going to get to when we talk about your game, or a Gardner Minshew, or a Marcus Mariota, or even drafting a rookie quarterback because they thought that it would regress. They thought that it would take the New York Giants and make them lose more games. But look at where we are at right now with the run-it-back situation. We're sitting at 5 wins. It does not matter because we're not talking about Patrick Mahomes up here to come in here and save the offense. That's not what it is. It's about getting an elite franchise quarterback to truly build around him. A lot of people want to go that opposite way, right? And they say, oh, we'll do it like San Francisco and build up the team before, and then finally we'll go push button, go get us our franchise quarterback. It don't work like that. I don't know why y'all think like that, bro. I really don't.
Yeah, and listen, a lot of people are going to use, in all these situations, they're going to try and use guys as like their example points. Okay, so like, oh, but San Francisco drafted Brock Purdy. The Brock Purdy situation is a once in a lifetime situation, right?
They cannot use that as an example,
and then
as a blueprint.
Yeah, then they want to say, "Oh, well, I'm drafting my guy because I expect him to be like C.J. Stroud and take my guy from a top 2, my team from a top 2 pick into a possible playoff hunt." And then they're going to look at it from the other side. They're going to be like, "Well, look at Bryce Young. The Carolina Panthers drafted Bryce Young #1, and now they're the worst team in the National Football League." Right.
They reach to the most extremes to try to support their point. Yeah. Where I'm somewhere in the middle of that. But the one thing that people can't deny is getting the franchise quarterback. Tell me these teams right now that are thriving right now, that are moving on up in this playoff hunt, that don't got a quarterback. There ain't one.
No.
There just ain't one. You got to go out there and get yourself the quarterback that's going to lead you to victories. And I also think that it got to be an alpha personality, man. These old quiet type of dudes, I know it worked with Eli Manning, but like we can't triple down and get another quiet type of quarterback that can't lead this locker room. That's the one thing I like about Tommy DeVito is he seems like he got some swag. The way he went over there to Saquon against the Green Bay Packers, like, bro, don't worry. We got this, bro. Even if you don't got it, at least walk around with some confidence and be able to have people around you that they feel like this quarterback is going to take us to victories. But this narrative that when you bring in the quarterback, he has to automatically win. And I know what's going to happen in New York. If we draft a quarterback and they throw him out there, as soon as he starts losing some games, they're going to be all, "Oh, I told you. See, this is why we should have rolled with Daniel Jones and all this stuff." It's like, yo, dog, we're looking towards the future. The New York Giants have been straight up dog shit for over a decade, man. You got to get a franchise quarterback in here and then build around him. And we can't use the Kansas City model that everybody thinks that it was just like, oh, remove Alex Smith and put in Patrick Mahomes. It wasn't that. First of all, Patrick Mahomes is a unicorn in his own right, and that roster had so much turnover. They had so much turnover. The San Francisco 49ers made an egregious mistake by going out there and trying to draft Trey Lance. They spent 3 first-round draft picks on a project quarterback when they absolutely should have went out there and got a veteran that could have came in there. I think they would have, minus the Brock Purdy thing, it would have been better off running with a guy like Jacoby. But they lucked up, and this is where I think that they at least looked at some insurance. They got a quarterback with the last pick in the NFL draft that had a lot of experience in college that they thought, hey, if this thing don't work with this young pup with Trey Lance, at least we got something we could fall back on and try to develop another guy that we find, on tape can do some things. And Brock Purdy, the same people who said Brock Purdy was like nothing last year now are trying to use him as an example of what the New York Giants should do with Tommy DeVito. Like, come on, yo. Like, we can't keep doing this. We literally cannot keep doing this every day on social media and on these platforms. We just can't keep doing this. We got to go out here and address the quarterback, or just stand 10 toes down and put your faith in Daniel Jones and say, I think he's capable. I think that's a much better option than sitting up here saying like, hey, maybe Tommy DeVito's a franchise quarterback.
It's such a reach.
It's such a reach. And then we're using more reaches to try to like be an example for the reach. Like, come on, dog. Like, we can't be like, well, Brock Purdy, like, dog, like, we can't keep doing that, yo. We just got to stop that. Shout out to the homie, the Illa, one time in the building, man. But I'm done with this game. And honestly, man, I'm clocked out. I'm tapped out for the season, man. It's like, yo, the New York Giants now, listen, it's draft preparation. It's developing these young players. It's figuring out who's going to be around for this coaching staff for the next season. Special teams, offensive line coaches, we already know they've been a disaster all year long. We got to find a way to be able to just put all the BS to the side, go get the franchise quarterback, be patient again, which is crazy to tell New York Giants fans right now because we just did this. Like 5 years ago, we were like, just be patient, man. We'll transition from Eli into Daniel Jones. Be patient, y'all. Before that, it was like, oh, man, Ben McAdoo, we're rebuilding this defense, man. Be patient. I think we can get there. And now we're 10 years later, we're talking about the same exact thing, sitting up here like, hey, we need a quarterback. And the game has changed. I want a quarterback that can do it all. I don't want one of these quarterbacks that sit in the pocket and just, trying to, unless they're a straight-up magician in that pocket. Pocket presence is going to be extremely important for me. Some legs to be able to run the ball is going to be important to me. Arm strength, arm talent. I want a high-end prospect. I'm not trying to bank on some dude in Tommy DeVito who, when you run a flea flicker, the ball's 3 yards short and Lil Wandale Robinson got to go jump up over somebody and try and make a play. Or when we're looking to stretch the field to Jalen Hyatt down the field, the ball's 3 yards short. I'm not trying to deal with that no more, y'all.
I'm not mad at you for that.
Yeah, and I think y'all got y'all own problems too, man. But like, I don't know. It's something about my team that feels worse. I don't know what it is. It just feels worse. But let's get right to it. I know my girl's upstairs. She told me earlier before the podcast she's in the mood for a juicy burger. I'm going to have to get her that burger. So let's go ahead and talk about these Commanders. They traveled to L.A. to take on the Los Angeles Rams. All right, Beard, we're going to save the music possibly for the roadmap for you because, you know, when you concentrating in the car, you're like, man, turn that radio down real quick, man.
Yeah,
just turn
when you're
that down.
parking, I need to turn the radio down and roll the window up.
Oh, I'm a dog. You know, I don't have a problem parking the car. I ain't never seen you do this.
Oh, you see me do that. You see me do this. I do that.
I see you right here like this with that left arm out the window catching a tan.
You know my window's always down.
Yeah, middle of the winter. I don't get it. Caucasians. The Rams ended up winning this game 28-20. Matthew Stafford is now 6-0 versus the Washington Commanders. Commanders have lost 5 straight games. They've lost 6 of their last 7, 10 of their last 12. 5 punts, 2 turnover on downs, all in the first 3 quarters. Washington was 3 for 14 on third down. Washington has scored 20 or more points in 9 games this season, the most through 14 games of a season since 2020. Definitely still not finding ways to win games because that defense has been at the bottom of the league for the last couple of weeks here one time. And right now, the Commanders are 23rd in scoring. They're averaging 20.1 points per game. They're getting close to that bottom of the league number we were talking about at the beginning of the year that you were like, there's no way we're going to be at was it 15 or 16? I think it was.
Yeah, something like 15.
Something along the lines. Now, I do want to talk about the quarterback, okay? Sam Howell, who has, in the last couple of weeks, has absolutely regressed. 2 games under 200 yards here. He was 11 of 26 for 102 in this game before getting benched. 1 touchdown, 1 interception, a QBR of 27.9. Sam Howell has 9 interceptions in his last 8 games. I've been talking about this all year. The dude has been a walking 1 turnover a game type of quarterback, okay? He has just 2 games where he didn't have either a fumble or an interception in the game. Sam Howell leads the league with sacks right now and pick sixes. I thought that was extremely alarming. He's been sacked 62 times in 15 starts, dating back to the game last year against the Dallas Cowboys where he was sacked 3 times in that game, 59 this year. His QBR on the year is 22nd in the entire NFL at 46.2. Now, Jacoby Brissett took over in this game with 7 minutes, 17 seconds left in the fourth quarter. The Rams were winning 28-7 at that point. He led Washington on a 5-play, 67-yard drive with a deep throw to Terry McLaurin. And what do you know? Terry McLaurin is open down the field. You wouldn't know when it was Sam Howell this year because Terry McLaurin has been seeming to like knick-knack his yards and not getting into the end zone. And the defense ended up forcing a 3-and-out with the score 28-14. And Jacoby led y'all on another drive for a touchdown, 9 plays, 65 yards, ended in a touchdown. Now, this is the part that I had a lot of beef with in this game. It surprised me that Ron Rivera has not been fired yet. I know they committed to kind of keeping him there throughout the year, but this is like bad second-grade John Madden type of clock management here towards the end of the game. There was 4:47 left in the game when Washington was at the 1-yard line, okay? I don't know why the Beard be finding this stuff funny. This is bad.
It blows my mind. I don't know how it's because when you say it like that, like how, because I know where we're going here. Like, just say it one more time.
I didn't get to the punchline.
What was the
amount of time? From the 1-yard line.
From the 1-yard line.
4:47.
4:40. Okay.
4:47 left on the 1-yard line. Okay. Washington had all 3 timeouts. You're down 14. It took them 2 minutes and 47 seconds to score. Every time, and I saw this from Warren Sharp, who talked about this point, every time that Washington snapped the ball, there was less than 5 seconds left on the play clock. You started on the 1 with 4:47 left. Some penalties kind of knocked them back. It took them 11 plays to score a touchdown. 9 of the plays were from the 3-yard line or closer. Absolutely no urgency, no situational awareness. They didn't show Eric Bieniemy on the sideline during this stretch, but they did show Ron Rivera, who was just kind of just chilling, just sitting there, just chilling, right? They huddled up before every one of those 11 plays. And then to top it off, you know, I had to go back and look at this because I was like, was this an analytics thing? Like, did they go for 2? Joey Sly ends up missing the extra point.
Mm-hmm.
J.P. Finley asked Ron Rivera about the time management at the end of the game, and Ron Rivera said, "We tried to get the plays in as fast as we could. You know good and goddamn well that's a damn lie, Ron. You know that is a lie." Brissett came in the game. He went 8 for 10 for 124 yards, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions. Brissett is the first NFL quarterback to throw for over 120 yards on 8 or less completions since Justin Fields did it back 2 years ago. Now, this is what I've really wanted to bring up about the quarterback situation. Sam Howell on the year. There was a lot of hype 3 games ago. Everybody thinking Sam Howell is a guy, pretty much, right? And I can speak to the evidence that I saw when me and the Beard went to camp. I thought Sam Howell could make some throws, but some nice throws don't necessarily mean that you are a franchise quarterback. And I think with him, I'm willing to pump the brakes a little bit because there was a lot of positive on the field from him. Early on, it seemed to be that, holding on to the ball too long. Mid-season, it seemed to be the interceptions and a couple of fumbles here and there, but mainly the interceptions. But I wanted to compare him. You talked about Taylor Heineke and the hype, and I wanted to revisit that conversation because I want to say like week 5, week 6, when he was leading the league in yards, completions, everything. I spoke about how Eric Bieniemy is also throwing the ball just way too much, and that gives Sam Howell the most attempts in the NFL. So Sam Howell on the year, 3,568 yards in 14 games, 19 touchdowns and 15 interceptions. That number is getting extremely close to a 1-to-1 ratio now, which is terrible. If a quarterback is sitting at a 1-to-1 ratio, I don't want no business with that quarterback. And I'm not saying that they should really move on already, but I'm questioning it, and we'll get to that at the end of this segment. But Taylor Heineke was in a very similar position as Sam Howell when he became the starter for the Washington Commanders because he had only played 1 game the season before they named him the starter, and then he ended up playing 16 games that year. He had 20 touchdowns and 15 interceptions that year. So those numbers look like damn near identical to Sam Howell minus the yards. The one thing I want to look up, maybe you could look this up for me. I want to see how many attempts Sam Howell has through 14 games. And I'll round this out. So Taylor Heineke he had 494 attempts, and he was a 65% completion percentage type of quarterback. It was his first year as a starter. He played that 1 regular season game in 2021, and he had the 1 playoff game as well against the Bucs, right, where he played all right. He left some throws out there for sure. But I found it interesting that Terry McLaurin comes in, and he has a career day when you make the move to Jacoby Brissett. This was the most yards that Terry McLaurin had in a game in his entire career. And this year, he did not have a single 100-yard game entering this game. He had 6 receptions for 141 yards. He was averaging 23.5 yards per carry. How many attempts we got for Sam Howell?
535.
So you're looking at about 1 more game, I would say. It's a little bit over. It could be 2 games because you're looking at 500 and how much?
35.
535. So you're looking at 41 more attempts he has over the amount that Taylor Heineke had in the 16 games, and the numbers are almost identical. Taylor Heineke has 1 more touchdown. I know Sam's completion percentage is over like 64, so he's probably around that range.
64.7 right now.
So the completion percentage is almost identical. Taylor Heineke at 65, Sam Howell at 64.7. The attempts, Sam Howell has 41 more attempts, which for Taylor Heineke, that's 2 games for sure. But for Sam Howell, that's probably like a game and a half. And he has 1 less touchdown and the same amount of interceptions. So I'm looking at these guys as they're almost the same quarterback, although Sam Howell has a better skill set because we know Sam Howell has the better arm talent, the better arm strength. I think Taylor Heineke is they're pretty equal as far as like pocket presence. I'm going to give the pocket presence to Taylor Heineke. I think that Sam Howell's getting better at it, but both of these guys were guys who were technically their first year, right? Now, Terry McLaurin joined Gary Clark. I know a lot of you youngins out there, y'all don't know about Gary Clark. Gary Clark was a damn dog. He was one of the better wide receivers in the league at that time, and they had Art Monk on that squad too, getting a little bit older. But Terry McLaurin joined Gary Clark as the only other player in franchise history to have 5,000 receiving yards through his first 5 seasons of their career. This game got out of hand early. They did have the 2 fumbles, though, that they gave y'all in this game. Kyron Williams was definitely the difference, 27 rushes for 152 yards, 1 touchdown. And Matthew Stafford, man, I think people just got to get back to putting that respect on Matthew Stafford's name. 25 of 33 for 258, 2 touchdowns. QBR was 83.5 out of 100. And Cooper Kupp, 8 receptions for 111 yards, 1 touchdown on 8 targets. He had 8 receptions on 8 targets. The 1 blown coverage, he was wide open down the field, got about half his yards on that play. He's now over 110 yards in back-to-back games. And your boy, I give you props on this one, man, Demarcus Robinson. He had a touchdown in this game as well. I think he scored the 28, the 4th touchdown for them in this game. But I want to know this before we transition into roadmap nuggets, all of that stuff that there's really no nuggets left on the table, a bunch of scraps and a bunch of deformed nuggets that were burnt. I had some bad McDonald's the other day. This dude completely ruined my meal. I'm just like, bruh, come on. I want to know what you think about this. We did touch on it a little bit, but is it time for the Commanders to absolutely at least consider drafting a quarterback in 2024?
I mean, to answer, if I'm doing this, because I'm trying to do this now, okay? Yes, if you're going to be in the position that you're in and you're bringing in a new GM, you're bringing in a new coaching staff and everything like that, I think it would be negligent to not consider drafting a quarterback in 2024.
I'm right there with you.
I
First
mean,
round?
What's that?
First round?
Yeah, you have to. If you're in the top 5 and, Sam Howell, although Sam Howell has shown to me that he is a good quarterback, he hasn't shown enough, and it sucks because it's in your first year. Most quarterbacks get time and stuff like that, but he is in a bad predicament because he basically is getting a 1-year showcase with a all-around bad team and not the greatest coaching staff and a guy who's calling plays by himself for the first time, and you're basically getting a 1-year audition. And you're auditioning for somebody you don't even know who you're auditioning for at this point, really, because it's all going to be brand new. So it's like he would have had to have gone out there and put up damn near MVP numbers for everybody.
And I think that's the part that's a little bit unfair to both your former quarterbacks, to Taylor Heineke and to Sam Howell, because Taylor Heineke had no experience before that year with Washington, right? I think he appeared in 5 games, a couple of them with Carolina and scraps, right? Same thing for Sam Howell. He's thrusted into this situation as pretty much a rookie. They pulled the plug on Taylor Heineke the following season. He only had the 16 games. That was his only full season as a starter. And then they pulled the plug on him. And I thought that they really botched that. This is when I started really looking at Ron Rivera it's time to get rid of Ron Rivera. And you know what I always overlooked is that Ron Rivera, I used to always say this on our show, right? He's a product of Cam Newton. And I forgot. I really forgot to mention this. But Dave Gettleman was the general manager over there. Those two dudes in the same room, I know Ron Rivera's getting a little older and things are kind of going a little bit more downhill for him now, I feel like. But those two guys in the same room is definitely a recipe for a disaster. And I just think it's unfair to both the quarterbacks. They put these guys in situations where they almost can't succeed. And the way that they did Taylor Heineke, right? The dude won 5 out of 6 games. He tied the game to the Giants, and then he lost to the San Francisco 49ers. And they just were like, let's bring back in the dude who we paid the $28 million to, who looked like straight up garbage in the last outing against the Chicago Bears when they were on Thursday night when he messed up his thumb. They bring him back in to finish out the season, and they don't even just die on Taylor Heineke. That would be like right now going back to Tyrod Taylor as the starter for the New York Giants, because I feel like, look, you got Tommy DeVito out there. At least go see what you got in him. Let him finish out the season. It don't matter. Tyrod Taylor's not going to be on this team next year, barring a miracle.
The benching was weird to me in this game. I didn't understand it. What's the point of benching Sam Howell?
I thought it was because of the terrible manner in that interception. That's what I think. And they're just like, you know what? The game's out of reach. Let's just.
Yeah, some people were saying that they were frustrated with that he was missing a lot. He looks a little shell shocked the last couple of weeks. I wonder if the hits are finally starting to catch up to him a little bit, from throughout the year. Because
I also think no Brian Robinson, bro, is hurting him. That's the best player on y'all offense.
And
at least when Howell's the quarterback.
They benched Antonio Gibson.
Yeah, I mean he wasn't doing much in this game though. Rodriguez didn't have much success either.
No. But Ron Rivera seemed to have thought that we were running the ball well. It's just this is what I got told Awthentik before we got on live today. I said, this is the first time in years. I mean, there might have been a point during Jake Gruden, because for those of you that didn't watch Awthentik and The Beard years past, I was not the biggest Gruden fan.
Yeah, absolutely not.
This is the first time where I've just you guys see me come up here and you're in it till you're not, and it's a wrap for y'all. It's just, I want this season to be over, and I feel bad for some of these guys, man. And I know there's a lot of fans out here that say, why would you feel bad for them? These guys make millions of dollars. Right. And, it's just, I feel bad for some of these guys. I do
too. Especially Terry McLaurin. I feel
Terry
real bad for him
McLaurin,
because he's
too.
like the last of that, last of the Mohicans of that. Like when I started thinking about Taylor Heineke, I was thinking about Chase Young. Like the whole like pointing at the back of the jersey, like he is him and all that, right? Like that vibe is gone.
It's
You
gone.
lost Montez Sweat. You're going to lose some
killing
more of
it
these
in
players.
Chicago.
Next year, guys like Gibson, they're going to be out of here and probably going to struggle to find jobs, at least as starters for sure. Logan Thomas, a bunch of these guys, man. So I do feel you on that. And I don't think a job should not be dependent on the money as far as like how the player approaches it. Like, and in my line of profession, I pride myself on that. Like, it don't matter how much you paid me for the session. If something goes wrong, like let's say with my computer or something, I'm still going to feel like shit after the session. Like, damn, we just burned 45 minutes trying to troubleshoot something. So I don't think that point, from fans who think that like these guys make enough money where it shouldn't bother them. I mean, at the end of the day, they'll be able to get over it. I'll agree with that point. Yeah, but I thought one of the homies here in the chat brought up a good point too. Sean Jackson brought up a really good point, kind of reminiscent on the 2019 season and whatnot in 2020. Said Beard and Awthentik back in 2020, Dallas, Washington, and Giants all hired new coaches, new personnel. 4 seasons later, only the boys are winning. Drafting, coaching, et cetera. Why Washington and our Giants still losing?
I think it's a combination of both of those
It
things.
is player development, and that all starts from the top down, right? Like I can remember having arguments with people about the coaching and who we were going to draft, and when we brought in Joe Judge, people being like, same way that I'm kind of talking about DeVito now. Like, I didn't have a lot of faith in Joe Judge until after the 2020 season when he won 6 games. I was like, all right, I'm down to get on board with this. He showed at least some signs of life. But, like, I was the dude that was banging the table for Mike McCarthy and people telling me I was nuts.
I remember that. I remember
And look at this. The only one of those 3 coaches that's actually having some success is Mike McCarthy.
And listen,
Like, that bothers me. That really bothers me.
For Ron Rivera, answering this on the Washington standpoint, for Ron Rivera, it was a tough situation no matter what. And I think that it just took on too much on his plate to begin with, basically being a general manager and head of personnel decisions and all of these responsibilities on top of being a coach, mixed in with Dan Snyder, mixed in with all of the investigations, mixed in with COVID, mixed in with getting cancer. Like it just became too much. And there was no out. They tried in this last couple of years by bringing in Mayhew and that staff and the hiring of Jason Wright and things like that.
Yeah.
Things on top
Trying to
of
bring
that,
some youth kind of in the building.
He lost his edge as a head coach. The draft classes didn't necessarily pan out the way that we thought they would. It's a lot, man, and it just didn't work out. And I stood by Ron Rivera through a lot of that. But, this year, it was just evident. And I said it in the beginning of the year that I knew that this was going to be Ron Rivera's last year no matter what. I did not know it was going to end. It was going to come down the way that it did here. And it's unfortunate for Ron. It's unfortunate for the fan base. Like for us, it's weird because it's almost like, we always feel like back in the day, and not necessarily all the way back in the day, but at times during Dan Snyder's ownership, we would always win the offseason. We were offseason champions. Deion Sanders, Adam Archuleta, Bruce Smith, and Albert
Adam
Haynesworth,
Archuleta, wow.
and all those sort of situations, right? But this year, it's you have try to find silver linings, right? We're finally have a new owner. We're gonna have a new coaching staff. We're gonna have a new front office. We have $90+ million in cap space. We have like 10 of the first 100 draft picks. So, you have to look at it like that. And there's going to be some casualties in the line of this rebuilding. And it's not going to happen overnight. And Sam Howell might just be one of those casualties. It's very unfortunate. I think Sam Howell has done a good job. He hasn't done a great job. He hasn't done a bad job. I mean, we've seen rookie quarterbacks have way worse seasons than Sam Howell. We've seen rookie quarterbacks have extremely better seasons than Sam Howell.
The one thing, though, that I think we can't ignore about Sam Howell, I don't think he's had a good season. I do think it's kind of like declining now.
It is.
And the one up that he had is, we can say this was like his rookie season, but he sat last year.
He sat last year.
And he learned the NFL way for an entire year.
Very true. Very true.
So we can't give him that pass, I feel like. I love this statement from Sean Jackson. And some of the others in the chat are dropping some gems as well. Stephen White said, difference is quarterback when he's talking about what the statement that was on the screen. Dallas had their quarterback. I think that for y'all, the personnel wasn't as much of an issue as it was like for our team. Like, y'all had good personnel. You looked at Jahan Dotson, Terry McLaurin, Logan Thomas, pretty solid. Brian Robinson, Antonio Gibson. Defensive side of the ball, Montez Sweat, Chase Young, your two interior defensive linemen, and Jonathan Allen and Payne. You guys had some ballers defensively in that secondary. You had Cam Curl, DeForest Buckner, not DeForest Buckner. What's your guy's name? The safety who played well last year. What's his name? Derek Forrest, my bad. Who played well. At cornerback, y'all had some talent there. You brought in a new rookie corner. You thought he was going to pan out with Emmanuel Forbes. Who's the other cornerback? Fuller, right?
Yeah, Fuller and Benjamin St. Juste.
Benjamin St. Juste, another decent player, right? So, like, I felt like y'all had talent. To me, it was two things for y'all, and I think the difference definitely being the quarterback. Now we're, like, putting in – I talked to you about this. I thought it was similar to San Francisco. Like, Washington wasn't quite in the San Francisco area or neighborhood, right? But if you did bring in a real quarterback – it could have helped this team out if the goal was to try to win now this year. And then you blow it up before the trade deadline. You let go of your two best defensive players. Stephen White also talked about drafting well, you know, and talking about how Dak was there before that. But Baltimore, teams like Baltimore drafting well. That's all very true. And I think with the Giants, we've struggled with that. Like, yeah, we got a couple of pieces that hit in Kayvon Thibodeau. I think Wan'Dale Robinson is a decent draft pick as well. But, like, when you look at you spent a 7th-round pick on Evan Neal, and he's the worst right tackle like in the damn league. Things like that cannot happen. And the offseason, spending the money on the quarterback, right? And not having the dollars to put the pieces around him. So now you got to bank on a young, youthful offensive line to develop, and you don't have the coaches on the staff to develop that offensive line. It's clear as day now that Bobby Johnson has a problem developing talent on the offensive line. So it just was a flawed plan across the board, where it's like this year when you were coming in very confident, I kind of felt like you might have been more right than me when we were doing those record prediction shows, because I'm like, man, imagine we saw it firsthand at the camp. Jahan Dotson was extremely confident. You saw him in preseason after games. We went to 2 preseason games. Shout out to Chris Peace, who blessed us with tickets for those, right? And we saw Jahan Dotson, the confidence in the press conferences after those games, like talking like, yo, I'm about to be that dude. The confidence was there. So I kind of thought Washington was going to be able to at least be around 500, and to see both these teams, you know, completely crumble. And at different times in the season, to be honest, with y'all, it was happening while we were crumbling in the beginning, but I knew New York was going to get off to a slow start with those tough 5 games in the beginning of the year. And now for y'all to just lose games like that we looked at the beginning of the year, like, man, Washington should be competing with these teams. And now going out here back-to-back weeks not competing at all. It's frustrating, man. Like, this, it's full circle, bro. Like, I'm right back at 2019 right now, it feels like.
And the one thing I just want to touch on before we move on is I will stand by this. Is, you know, you talk a lot about wasting Terry McLaurin's prime, right?
Yeah.
And I agree with you on that, you know. But to me, the biggest, when you just talked about all those names on the defensive side, that's to me is going to be the biggest regret and downfall of this team and the Ron Rivera era. And the thing that will hurt me the most is I think Ron Rivera's loyalty to Jack Del Rio was the worst of the worst. They really needed, like, and it's not necessarily saying that Jack Del Rio is a bad coach, right? But it just, like, you have invested that much money into the defensive side of the ball, right? Mm-hmm. And you have that much talent on the defensive side of the ball. It has to be better. And you had to have moved on, tried something different to try and get the best out of all that talent. And you didn't do so. And by the time you didn't fire him until after you traded away 2 of the best players in that young defensive core, Montez Sweat and Chase Young. And for me, that's going to be one of, outside of, you know, the obvious quarterback debacle during the entire Ron Rivera era. And Awthentik was on that way before, about Ron Rivera's inability to, you know, to do the quarterback position. But outside of that, it's the waste of the talent on the defensive side of the ball.
Yeah, 4 first-rounders. You know, 5 if you looked at Kerrigan when he was a part of that, right? Because at one point, y'all had 5 first-rounders on that defensive front. And I do think that Chase Young's injury, you know, set back Jack Del Rio for that 1 year, because we talked about this on a couple of pods where it was like 1 good year, 1 bad year. You had a top 10 defense at one point, and then it just completely flipped, and you're a bottom 3rd defense, you know. And I think that the injuries definitely hurt them, and just not continuing to build on the defense as well. I think the Emmanuel Forbes move was a bit of a panic move late in
Jamin
Del
Davis
Rio's
at the linebacker position. Same sort
Jamin
of
Davis as
situation.
well. And Ron, I wanted to suggest an idea that could have worked out this year for Washington. And thinking about it, I was like, nah, that's not a good idea, because you could have got rid of Del Rio and Ron Rivera, having the defensive background, take over the defense. But like, look at what's happening here. I know we don't have the two best players out there on the edge, but since Ron Rivera has taken over this defense, it looks worse than it did all year. And they were the worst defense in the league when Del Rio was there. So it's like, you can't win. You really can't win with the situation that's been happening with Washington. And yeah, man, I think it's only right that, me and you being brothers from different mothers here, that we both suffer and share our misery with our two teams on the same podcast 4 days a week on Awthentik and Beard, the best television show not on TV. That's what it is, man. So 3 more weeks of this, man. It's tough. We got the Eagles twice in those 2 weeks too, and then the Rams as well. So I saw what the Rams did to y'all. We'll definitely see what they do to us. It's going to be tough.
Big shout out to Chef for the $5 super chat. I swear to Thor himself, if I hear some unreleased beats or any music whatsoever, there will be a riot in this chat. We will not sleep until you mute.
Shout out Chef Oz one time in the building. I think it was Chef Oz who responded to the dude like, of all things you come here to complain about, you're talking about the goddamn music.
Literally in the background, the entire
damn
every
show.
For
He's
4 or 5
man, I couldn't
years.
take it. Yeah, it's crazy. But I think he was, to give him the benefit of the doubt, he was a new subscriber or something like that. And I told him, I said, bro, we use that every show, man. If you don't like that beat, it's gonna be a problem, brother. I promise you that, man. But shout out Chef Oz one time in the building, man. I'm trying to see what that Avi is on Chef Oz one time.
It's Anthony Bourdain.
Oh man, rest in peace, Anthony Bourdain, one of the GOATs, man. So any last vibes, man, before we get up out of here, man? And 3 more weeks of this misery, bro, for real.
Listen, I think it's good. There's just gonna be some funness to it, right? Listen,
When we get to the playoffs, we're gonna talk about some other teams.
Yeah, that will. But I mean, listen, Thursday we get to talk about the worst offense in the National Football League facing the worst defense in the National Football League.
And who are those two teams?
The New York Jets and the Washington Commanders.
Oh, that's gonna be fun. That's gonna be fun. You think y'all got a shot?
I hope not.
You want that draft position?
No, I don't care. You know me. I want to win damn football game. Yeah, we got a shot.
I know you keeping on the, keeping up the good guy facade here. I know deep down in your heart you be seeing catch happen, big play, like it stings. I don't want that. Get me that top draft pick. I need a better player on this team.
I'm gonna be excited though, to talk drafts because I love college football. So like I watch a lot of college football, and I watch a lot of these guys. I will tell you this. I'll leave you on this one note to ponder on. The one thing that would make me upset, I wouldn't be upset if you draft a quarterback. I wouldn't be upset if you didn't draft a quarterback. But I will be upset if you draft Drake May to replace Sam Howell. I will be upset about that, yeah.
Why would you be upset about that?
I don't think Drake May is that much better of a prospect than Sam Howell.
When I one of my homies in our group chat got a hand on some college all 22, I'm gonna share that with you. Because Drake May a dog, bro. Mechanics.
There's nothing against. I don't think that Drake May. I think Drake May is going to be a good NFL quarterback, but I just don't think that he's that much above Sam Howell for me to draft him at that.
I think just thinking about the playmaker ability. But May just got the stature of a real NFL quarterback. You see Sam Howell over the middle has been a little bit of trouble, a little bit of issues with him. I don't think you're going to get that with Drake May. Giants get Drake May. I'm all good. Let's go. Get Caleb Williams. I'm all good.
Probably, I don't know, fourth to sixth round, probably.
Late, you think?
Yeah, Sam Hartman, yeah. I think he can play. I think he can play at the NFL level. He's definitely got the NFL arm. He has the mobility to do it. He can make the throws. But there are some concerns that I have about Sam Hartman, and I think that he started to get a little turnover prone towards the end of this season. He needs to land in the right spot. I think that's going to be a lot to do with Sam Hartman, but I think he's a good quarterback. I think he'll play in the NFL, but I think he'll probably be like a 4th to 6th round pick.
I'm thinking about the teams that are legitimately going to try to go after quarterback. I think the Raiders are definitely a team. The Falcons probably. The Jets probably. possibly the Chicago Bears, y'all, New England.
There's probably only like 6 teams that don't go after a quarterback.
I think there's more than that. I think there's a lot of teams solidified at quarterback right now. Colts definitely not going after quarterback. Jacksonville not a quarterback. Bengals not a quarterback. Kansas City not a quarterback. Cleveland cannot. They just can't afford to go after a quarterback. Detroit's not going after a quarterback either because they got the other kid that they're trying to develop, Hendon Hooker. So
they just activated him actually off of the.
Yeah, Philly no quarterback. Pittsburgh could consider it. Houston Texans absolutely not. The Seattle Seahawks could consider it, but I don't think they will either. Saints, possibility, I guess. Green Bay could be a possibility.
Yeah, I'm being the beard. I'm just exaggerating.
Yeah, so I mean, I don't think a lot of quarterbacks have spots to land, to be honest, man. Like a lot of these people got things, franchise quarterbacks at least committed to a franchise quarterback checked off right now. So we'll see, man. A lot of bridge quarterbacks. I enjoyed seeing Jacoby Brissett come in and play well. I did enjoy that.
I mean, listen, and that's the thing too, is I don't think there's any sort of quarterback controversy or people think that if, will we've been a playoff team if Jacoby started from the beginning. I think we both agreed at the beginning of the year that Sam Howell looked like the better quarterback over Jacoby Brissett. It wasn't drastic, but we both agreed on that. Right?
I thought that he could throw the football better.
Yeah.
But Jacoby Brissett, a thing that a lot of people overlook when they're trying to evaluate quarterbacks is the mind.
Yep.
The veteranship of a guy like Jacoby Brissett at the line, man.
Was a good point too. Because we talked about that on the parlay. Like, why are they starting Case Keenum over Davis Mills? And look what, he did what he needed to do for the Texans to win that game.
Yeah. I definitely counted them out in that too. But guys like Brissett, guys like Baker even now, like what are the Bucs going to do? I heard somebody say that the Bucs better not pay $40 million to Baker Mayfield. I'm just like, nobody's going to do that, bro. Like,
yeah, he's not going to ever get like that sort of deal again. But listen, the Browns dropped the ball on that. I'll stand by that. And I love Deshaun Watson as a quarterback. I always have. But the Browns dropped the ball on that. That was.
I think they did.
Yeah,
I think
they did. I mean, Baker brought the Browns back to relevancy, and then they just got rid of him like he was dirty laundry. And
the way they treated him when they sent him out the door was definitely terrible. I do think in hindsight though, the contract is what is crazy, right? The $200 million guaranteed for Deshaun Watson is ridiculous.
Just that whole transition from
but he did show you that he's a quarterback that could have elevated that roster. And I think this is where I'll give the Browns a little bit of credit. They just blew that whole shit up, kind of. Yeah. They kept the running backs, right? But you can't forget, like when Baker was over there, it was Jarvis Landry, Odell Beckham. They just got rid of all that. They just said, forget this. We're going to try to build a better squad. It ain't working out, but I do think that Deshaun Watson was playing some better football before he got injured. And you get a big injury like that, and it's just like, damn, now you've wasted 2 seasons. He was suspended for the majority of last season, came in week 12, I think it was, and then he missed the majority of this season with injury, and you ain't getting that money back. That is what it is. So I think that they overlooked the injury aspect of a quarterback not playing for so long. The Giants kind of did the same thing. They looked at Daniel Jones and they said, hey, this guy, he played a full season last year, and they ignored the other seasons where he was hurt every year, and now you've wasted a year on the contract, which for the Browns now is 2 seasons. So, yeah, that does look bad. And Baker, looking pretty good with them Tampa Bay Baker-nears. He definitely is.
I wouldn't want to play them in the playoffs.
Of all the teams out there, they might be the team I would want to play against. I really wouldn't want to see the Rams.
I was going to ask you.
It'd be the Seahawks or the Bucs.
Rams or Bucs.
I absolutely want to play the Bucs before I play the Rams.
Yeah.
Because offensively, the Rams can just go crazy on you.
Hey,
and
Rashad White had another huge game, man.
Yeah, he did. Yup. Rashad White, he been balling out. That's now 3 100-yard games, I believe, in the last 4. Yeah, he been balling out. But we'll see, man. I am looking forward to off-season. I'm looking forward to that. Like, this is the one for Brian Dable and for Joe Shane. This is absolutely the one. It's absolutely the one.
Off-season for the ages. For the record books.
We said that last year too, man. And then they went and signed Jones. I was like, what are we doing? What are we doing here? Hey, they said Awthentik, we running it back, bro. Sterling Shepard, we'll bring in Paris Campbell, who's Richie James Jr. Bring back my man Darius Slayton. Isaiah Hodgins off the practice squad. Bro, we are in trouble right now. We are in trouble.
A lot of holes.
Yeah. At least this rebuild is going to be considered towards the offense, though, man. Any last words before we get the gang up out of here, dog?
No, shout out to all the Dallas Cowboys fans that are not in the chat right now. I still love you guys. I appreciate you as always. Hopefully you'll be back here on Thursday because you have a big matchup against the Miami Dolphins. But big shout out to everybody. We appreciate all the love and all the support. Great conversation in the chat today. We'll be back on Thursday to talk more NFC East football. I'm excited to talk about the Jets and the Commanders. More
Should
so
be fun. But every time we've downplayed that Thursday night game, you see what happens, man. Big points, big points. The Patriots went out there, put up some big points. Who was it last Thursday? We were like, this is going to be a terrible game.
The Raiders and the Chargers.
The Raiders and the Chargers, yeah. Raiders went out there and was breaking records. Aiden O'Connell out here one time, man. Big shout out to Aiden O'Connell. But y'all know what it is, man. Shout out to the gang. We appreciate all of y'all pulling up, rocking out with us while we get to rant and vent about these two awful football teams sitting at the bottom of the NFC East. We got to go watch the Philadelphia Eagles and the Dallas Cowboys and do coverage on it, covering the playoffs. Both of those teams did clinch. But big shout out to y'all nonetheless, man. Y'all know how we end every show over here, man. Keep raising that bar. Keep living those dreams because the universe flows in Technicolor and surround sound. Rest in peace to the podcast GOAT Combat Jack. That's a wrap for the New York Giants and the Washington Commanders. Y'all enjoy the rest of y'all night. I know I will. Y'all be good. Peace.
Spike don't care.